There we go. Good evening, friends. Nice to be back on location. So I'm back in my studio again. I've been away for almost a week and a half, 2 weeks. It's been quite a while. So I've been filming from a small room with just like the camera. I think I used the camera on my laptop even, but it seemed to work, and some people came, and I even did some coaching calls from there as well. It's not as comfortable as sitting in here with the air conditioner and everything working, but yeah, it works, and it's nice to be back. Let's see if I can just get this away. There we go. I hope there is some sound and that everything is working, but it seems like it is. Yep. Yeah, I think so. So, let's see, Christo. Hey, Christo. Nice to see you. Looking and sounding good. Thank you. Thank you. I thought today would be a good day to talk about injuries to the knees a little bit, because I have in my left knee, I have both my meniscs are kind of broken, so that my knees pop. If I go down on my knees and try to get up, it kind of pops out of place. And that's been quite bad the last few days, maybe weeks, something like that. But right now I'm having a hard time sitting cross-legged when I'm meditating, and you'll have that sometimes, because if you sit a lot, you'll have just a lot of strain on your knees, especially in the beginning when you're not used to it. This is not meditation related, even though we could be argued that since I sat so much that maybe I damaged my knees, which is possible. But the way that I usually sit then is that I have one knee out like that, and then just the other one forward. I also sit a lot on chairs. Chairs can be really good to get a good sitting posture in. See, Christo is saying, bad knee injury from a car wreck years ago. It doesn't like being bent too long, so a lot of my prayers and meditations are done standing up. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea, Christo. Because when you have, see if I can turn down the fan on my computer. It's just getting really loud. I don't know if the microphone picks it up. There we go. So, it's quite warm in here. Yeah, when your knees are not feeling good. I know in many traditions, pain is kind of considered sometimes it's considering a rite of passage, that you're supposed to go through pain. But most traditions are quite serious, that you should never go beyond like actually physical pain. This is like damage to the knee pain, but then you have pain from just sitting, and like it just hurts when you sit down. That's a different thing. That's usually not something that will be dangerous. What they told me and what I've always gone by is that if you have pain for a while after you get up, meaning when you sit down there's pain, that's fine, but when you get up and you still feel pain for longer than like 10, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour or so, then if it continues longer than that, then it's something bad, and you should definitely consider not doing it. Let's see, Mindful Mama is back. Nice to see you again and to join here again. Nice. The computer fan doesn't bother me. Nice. Yeah, I turned it down now as well. I have like different modes. So it is important to not neglect the body, which is something that a lot of spiritual people do when they get too into it, because they consider I'm not my body, and then that means I don't need to take care of my body. But I've seen people who do that a bit more than just a little bit, and it's just not a good idea. I mean, life is difficult enough as it is. Having a body that is not working or that is hurting, has a lot of pain for you. It's just so difficult, more difficult than it needs to be to practice then. So I really recommend you take it seriously when your body is saying like, no, this is not working. But at the same time, don't just as soon as there's a little bit of pain or a little bit of itch, like, I need to move. Like, no, I'm not, it's not good to do this. You can also try, what I'm going to try doing first is I'll try to bend it and then put a cushion underneath to support it so it's not leaning down the whole way. And if that doesn't feel good, then I'll try stretching it out. But I think the main thing that I want to point out with what I said before, since there's so much talk about pain being a good thing and you should really sit through the pain, and that is a good thing in many ways, but you should never hurt yourself. Like it's really important to kind of follow the middle way. Like at the time of the Buddha, there were people who stared into the sun until they went blind, because like it was just the Wild West of spiritual practice. Like, I wonder what happens if I look at the sun, because the sun is obviously some kind of deity. I'm going to look at the sun and stare at it until I see something other people don't see. And of course, I would just go blind. So that's not a good idea. And then the middle way of the Buddha, which even though I don't preach Buddhism, I still consider a lot of the teachings to be very good. And the middle path is something that is very useful, meaning that, don't like stare into the sun because that's stupid. But at the same time, unless you want to go blind. But at the same time, don't just as soon as there's like, there's a little bit of like discomfort, I'm just going to move and I'm going to get this super comfortable cushion and like make sure that I don't feel any kind of discomfort. Like that's taking it too far. So yeah, listen to your body and don't be afraid to push it a little bit, but don't push it too much because you don't want to hurt yourself. Yeah, there were just those. Good. So, otherwise, it's nice to be back, and I'm looking forward to sitting again. I've been sitting, but I miss it. I used to sit so much cross-legged, and then when I started having problems with my knees, I stopped for a while to sit cross-legged, and I really miss it. It's like my body has been ingrained after thousands of hours. As soon as I put my legs like this, put my hands like that, it's just like taking some kind of like pushing a button or taking a pill. I just go, I can really feel. I just start meditating immediately. So I would always sit on chairs and everything. I just sit cross-legged, but I have a hard time doing that. I see Christo is saying, I have to wear shades all the time, even in the evening. Blindness isn't recommended. Thankful I don't need Braille. Did you stare into the sun, Christo? I told you that was a bad idea. What did you do? Yeah, sorry if I'm joking, but it is so easy when you're feeling good physically and mentally to think that, I don't need to worry about this because my body feels okay, so it's fine. But as soon as you have some kind of disease or some kind of illness or some physical pain, then the only thing you want to do is just to feel physically well again or mentally. Is there medical malpractice? Oh, really? Wow, that sucks. Seriously. Wow, both eyes or just one? For the, not blindness, but shades all the time in the evening. Was it one of those like surgeries where you try to change not the iris, what is it, the lens they change? I have glasses and I thought about doing surgery like that, but I always found it so scary. I had a friend who did it and her vision just got blurry for like a month, I think, before it got better eventually, but it just scared me. Both eyes. Yeah, that sucks. Sorry to hear that. That's what I wanted to say about pain. And anything else? No. Otherwise, see what time it is. Oh, it's actually time. Where do I have my... Yeah, I have everything ready here. So I'm going to try and see how it works. If I do it like this. Yeah, a little bit is okay. It's actually gotten better now than it was. Yeah, with the cushion, I think this is going to work. We'll give it a try. And like I said, when you do, if you have pain, then just like be careful and don't overdo it. Don't be stupid, and you'll be fine. I suffered so much pain. Well, there's one of the blinds fell down. I sat with so much pain when I was living as a monk that I just got used to any kind of pain I had. I just said, it's just from the meditation, and I just kept on sitting. I would not do that today, but I did it then, and it worked out. So just be aware of that. Hyperbaric oxygen chamber avoids those, both eyes. Was it a diving related accident, or why were you in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber? Or that hyperbolic? No, hyperbaric. I used to be a scuba dive instructor, and I've never been pressurized in one, but I've seen them. So anyway, we'll start, and we can have some questions and answers afterwards. Today is Monday, so it's guided meditation, and we'll start like we've been doing lately with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, which means that we say out aloud 5 things that we can see, 4 things that we can feel, 3 things that we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and finally 1 thing that we can taste. And the whole idea is that we want to slow down, we want to calm down our minds, and we want to come back to our senses. So it's a kind of not really a mindfulness meditation, but a mindfulness practice, maybe. I'm not sure what to call it, since it's not something you would do over and over and over again. It's something you do as one thing, and then it's very good to do, like just during the day if you feel okay, a bit stressed. Just do this exercise and it helps. And the main thing here is that we want to say out aloud what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're touching. And as we go gradually down, we will start with seeing, seeing, touching, and then hearing. You need to focus a bit more. Smelling, you really stop and just smell. Like, can I smell something? And then tasting is usually the most difficult, so you kind of go finer and finer and finer. And you say it out aloud, because by saying it out loud, it's not just like, okay, I see, I could just like, done, 5 things. That's not what you want to do. You want to really calm down and be aware of what you're seeing. So you can do it along with me as I do it at the same time. And we'll see here. I see a camera lens looking at me. I see a pair of headphones. I see a window. I see a bookshelf. And I see a lamp. And then 4 things that I can touch. I can touch my hairy legs. I can touch this microphone stand. I can touch the brass of this bell. And I can touch this USB cable lying here in front of me. And then we do 3 things that we can hear. I can hear my computer fan. There's some beautiful birds singing outside. And there's some kind of ticking. I think it's heat from the roof, the metal roof, like that kind of popping sound when it expands and contracts. Yeah. Then we do 2 things that we can smell. Okay, so I can smell, I need to take a shower. And then there's some kind of rubber. Some kind of plastic. Rubber or plastic smell. And then 1 thing that we can taste. Yeah, I just tasted I have bad breath. Yeah. Yep. So that's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. I want you to begin by just sitting down, standing up. You can even lie down if you want to, or maybe even walk if you'd really feel like it. And just bring your awareness to your breath. We have so many things we focus on during the day that our minds will run around looking for things to think about and looking for that feeling of something that feels nice, or maybe even that feels bad if you like torturing yourself. But for now, just let go of all of that and ask yourself, can you just spend the next 20 minutes focusing solely on your breath? You may have things that are really important that need to be taken care of. You may have some conflict that happened just 5 minutes ago 5 days ago, 5 weeks ago, or 5 years ago for some people. Just see if for these 20 minutes you can get right back worrying about that after 20 minutes. But for these next 20 minutes, it's okay. You can just let that rest. And instead, just focus on what it feels like to breathe. The one thing you've been doing since you came into this world. Just become aware of breath moving into your body and breath moving out of your body. You don't need to specifically feel the actual physical sensations of breath moving. Instead, it's more awareness of breath happening. You will be aware that your chest is moving, even though you might not be able to put a specific term to the movement you're feeling, but you'll be aware that you are breathing and that air is moving. That's all we're looking for here. If thoughts come up, for now, don't get angry at them. Don't feel disappointed. Instead, just come back to your breath and focus on breath going in and coming out. To make this easier to do, since you'll notice very quickly if this is your first time that the mind wants to wander away, and to make it easier to stay with the breath, we'll do a simple exercise where we count our breath from 1 to 8 and then down from 8 to 1. And we do this in a very specific way for a reason. You see, when I started meditating, I noticed very quickly that it was not easy to focus on the breath because my mind wanted to look for more interesting things to focus on, to be engaged with, or to think about. Think about what happened before, or think about having superpowers, or the amazing things you'll do when you'll get enlightened, or how you're going to change the lives of yourself and people around you. But it's difficult to just focus on something so plain, something so natural, something so easy as your breath. So what I noticed was that I could follow the breath as I was breathing in. And I noticed there was a short turnaround before the breath went out. And that there will be a pause. And in that pause, there was no breath. I'm just standing still. And it's very easy for the thoughts to sneak in, for distortions to come and start pulling at you in that little section of time. And that's why when we breathe in and we breathe out. 1. Breathe in, and again the same thing. So we'll do this together, 1 to 8, and then down from 8 to 1. So breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 2. Breathing in and breathing out. 3. Breathing in and breathing out. 4. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 8. Breathing in and breathing out. 7. Breathing in and breathing out. 6. Breathing in and breathing out. 5. Breathing in and breathing out. 4. Breathing in and breathing out. 3. Breathing in and breathing out. 2. Breathing in and breathing out. 1. And now just continue by yourself, counting your breath from 1 to 8 and then down from 8 to 1 as you breathe in and breathe out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. In some meditation techniques, we try to control the breath. We breathe in a certain pattern, certain amount of counts when we breathe in, hold our breath, breathe out, hold our breath. But in this particular meditation, we're not trying to do anything like that, or breath work, which is usually more intense. Instead, we are just observing our breath, and we are letting our breath happen by itself. It's like taking a step to the side and realizing that you don't need to make breath happen. Breath will happen by itself. Even if you go into a coma, your body will still breathe without your conscious effort. So as you do this meditation, just see if you can let breath happen. And see what happens to the breath. Does it get deeper? Does it get more shallow? Does it get faster? Will it get slower? Just see what happens to it. And the way that I breathe when I do the counting is not how you're supposed to breathe. I just do that to make it easier for people to see when I'm breathing out and breathing in. But instead, just step to the side and let breath happen as you're breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 'It can feel discouraging when your mind doesn't want to stop. When the mind is constantly running, having thoughts. For me, I've just been away on vacation and there's a lot of impressions, a lot of things that keep coming up. And it's easy to think that I should shut those thoughts off, to deny them from happening, because we don't want them, we're trying to focus on the breath. But that's not quite what we're trying to do here. Repressing or pushing down is a lot of tension, there's a lot of force in that. Usually what I let happen is that I let them just run and not focus on them, but I let them happen. When we're doing this meditation, we're trying to kind of ignore them. They're just there. They're not annoying. They're okay being there, but we're not giving them any attention. We're just focusing on our breath so they can keep on happening. That's fine. And instead, you keep coming back over and over again. You keep on keeping on to come back to your breath. And as you do so, you'll increase the stickiness of your mind, what's referred to as concentration or samadhi, which means that it requires less effort for you to focus on your breath. Your awareness will simply rest there by itself. And as that happens, your thoughts will gradually slow down as you focus on your breath, breathing in and breathing out. 1. Breathing in and breathing out. 'Sometimes, when you get into really deep, calm concentration states, you'll notice how your breath gets more shallow, slower, and the pauses between the breaths will get longer. And eventually, as you're sitting there, the mind is calm. You'll notice, or actually, you won't notice, because all of a sudden you realize that you're not breathing. And you think, oh my goodness, I stopped breathing. And you go to start breathing again. And there can be a feeling of panic associated with that. And that is perfectly fine. I've heard it said that some monks could sit for several minutes without breathing. I'm not sure if that is true, but when you get into deep concentration stages, the breath gets so shallow, so tiny that I don't understand how there's enough oxygen to keep you breathing. But as soon as you notice, just go back to your breath and breathe in and out. 1. As usual, if you want to, you can simply keep on meditating, or it's open for questions and answers. That was a bit strange. I was sitting and I thought, oh, we're probably halfway through, and then I felt the alarm go off. So apparently that was a bit quicker than expected. I sometimes wonder if I'm talking too little in between, because I don't want to talk too much and take you away from your meditation, and at the same time I know that if there's no talking, then it's very easy to drift away and forget to be aware. So I try to find a balance. On days like this, I wonder if I even talked at all. But I hope it worked for you guys. And my knee was perfectly fine. There was no pain. Having it supported like this just worked well. So just because you have pain doesn't mean you cannot sit and meditate. It just means that you have to rethink a little bit, and don't be too proud to put pillows underneath your knees, or maybe even sit on a chair and meditate, which is perfectly fine. That works as well. Stephen, hey, good to see you. Do you have any questions today? See, Mindful Mama, it felt like a perfect mix between silence and talk, slightly leaning towards much talking. Okay, nice. Like I said, I sometimes, it's difficult for me to judge, because I don't try to keep aware of how many ups and downs I go from 1 to 8 and 8 to 1, so sometimes I just lose track of how long I've sat in between. But it's nice to know it's not too little, at least. And I think the more self-sufficient you get, the less guiding you need. I just find the guided meditations that we listen to sometimes, I just find them like distracting, or I just kind of tone them out and let them run. I can listen to audiobooks. It's a very nice way to meditate. I'll just keep it running, and I just won't get into too much what they're saying, but I'll just let that be like a breeze in my ears, kind of. But very nice. You have such a soothing voice. Thank you. Nice to hear that. And we all have differences. Like I said, the more self-sufficient you become, the less you need the guiding. And some people, even though they're very skilled meditators, just feel more comfortable hearing someone else, or maybe they haven't taken the step yet where they feel that they can do it themselves. So it's a getting used to thing. See, Stephen is asking, I do have a question. I feel like I'm not ready for the distortion method. I can't pinpoint exactly where the self is originating. Maybe my sense of self is too strong. I think you're overthinking it. You're not supposed to, you don't need to find the source of self. The sense of self is the distortion. So it kind of, the way it will feel like is that, say something you have that is annoying, like you really know. I have something I'm thinking about now. So it can almost feel like I'm tensing, kind of. I'm like putting a pressure, like I'm pushing here towards that thing. Like, oh, that's annoying, and I keep pushing here. And it's not this thing here, it's not this thing here. The self is the distortion. When the distortion disappears, there is no self. So the actual self is in this distortion, which is why so many people get it wrong when they do unselfish actions and think that they are acting without a self. That's nothing to do with it. You can be the most unselfish person in the world, but still have the largest sense of self in the world. It's not about your actions, it's about how you feel. So this actual distortion, that is the self, if that makes sense. Mindful Mama is saying, I've been sitting outside tonight and it's so different than inside. Yes, it is. I felt much more unsettled at times, worried someone was watching or even coming up to me, so I kept opening my eyes. Oh, I recognize it so much, but also very interesting to observe. So what I would do when I was a monastic was, and then I had robes on, and there are some people who don't like monks, especially when I were in countries with certain religions that are like almost openly hostile towards monks. And I would sit down on a park bench or in the middle of a not a field, but a park, train stations, and I just close my eyes and I cross my legs and I sit and meditate. And it could be so much fear coming up. I would feel like, someone's going to come. And in the beginning especially, I was really worried. What are people thinking about me? What if someone sees me meditating? Oh my goodness, it'll be so embarrassing. Like, why do I care? But there was all these things coming up, and that's again the self thinking, oh, I need to be sure no one thinks I'm dumb or no one thinks I'm silly. So that's a tension, a pressure that you can feel towards that. But then you also have the very real feeling of danger. I mean, most of the time you are in no danger. I mean, if you're living in the West, where most of us listening to this are living, and in the East also, I mean, especially if you're in a forest, there could be animals that could come, but I don't know where you're sitting, but very likely you are safe, I'm assuming. But there is still the fear that comes up. There is still this worry, and those are like really good things to look at. So it's not again, meditation is not about getting calm. That's concentration meditation. Then you try to get calm. But when we're doing the distortion method and actually trying to take away these things, we want to let in distortion. We're not trying to avoid distortion. We're just trying to minimize the amount of things that we distort towards. So we just have like this tiny little slice. We just focus on this thing, because when you're walking around in daily life, there's distortion from everything, and you have distortions from how this feels and how the temperature of your skin, and are you sweaty, or do you smell, or like what's the taste in your mouth? All of those things create tiny, tiny distortions. So we try to minimize them and then observe them. And the stronger ones are usually the easiest to observe. So when you're sitting outside, that's a perfect time to observe these things. And again, it's the same as with the knee. Like, don't go into an active war zone and sit and meditate thinking that I'll be protected by some kind of deity or something, because if it's an active war zone, the odds are that you will get hurt, and you shouldn't do that. Or going to a gang in the middle, gang area somewhere where you shouldn't be alone, because that's a dumb idea. But if you are in a safe place, or if you are in a train station or on a bus, you don't even need to sit cross-legged. Just close your eyes and just sit and feel. And that's like, there's nothing that will happen most of the time. Again, I can't assure your safety, but just be mindful of what you're doing, and then see that fear come up and sit with it. And that's the distortion. You don't need to push it away. You don't need to act it out. And it's perfectly fine to open your eyes, because again, it could be that someone is there. So be aware of that. But just feel what that feels like. Stephen said, what if some things are too painful to look at? Then you look at smaller parts of that. I'll get into that more. So one of the ways that I did this is with something I call movie meditation. Say you find it very difficult with conflict, when you have a difficult conflict with someone else, and you simply can't handle it when there's a studio. It's just completely overwhelming. There's so much distortion. You feel so insecure, you can't handle it. So then what you do is you watch a movie, and you start the movie and you sit and you meditate. No, before you start the movie, you sit down, you meditate, you do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you do a few counts, 1 to 8 and 8 to 1 down, and you feel calm and quite centered, and then you start the movie. I recommend doing this either in front with a remote, or I used to do with my laptop. And then you start a movie that has a lot of conflict, that is really uncomfortable to look at, and you just start it and you let it run, and then you focus not on following the story or like observing what's happening, but actually how are you relating to what you're seeing. So there's a scene and someone comes up and they start being aggressive towards someone, and you sort of, I can feel the distortion because I find this, pause. And then you just pause and you sit and you focus on your breath, and you can do the 1 to 8 and 8 to 1 and just do that and see the distortion kind of echo around inside of you or like outside of you, however you feel it. And then just see until you calm that down. And see, can you feel that? And you see like, okay, I feel distorted. And then you open your eyes and you start it again. And say, it's too, you can pause it just 1 second after you start it. It doesn't matter. And you sit like this and you observe the distortions you get from a movie. They're not happening to you. It's not real. It's in the movie, but you're still distorting towards it. But that is a controlled environment where you can practice and try this, where you're actually not threatened physically or mentally even, because they're not there. It's a movie. It's not happening to you, but you're feeling the same thing. So that's a really good way when the distortions or the things are too painful to look at, then do it by watching a movie or watching a YouTube video, something that is not directly towards you, but you can still feel it. Jack is asking a question about strict practice of FMA. Absolutely. Go ahead. We'll take a few more minutes and then I'll actually go in because it is quite warm and I want to get my sleep back. I'm a bit out of sleep rhythm. Namarupa. Remind me, what is that again? I recognize it, but I can't remember it right now. Name and form. I don't ever think about those things. Like, I know you like the theoretical stuff, but for me, the only thing, I mean, except for, I think I read about the Nyamarupa when I did when I started out, because I have a memory of it, but it's never anything I ever focused on. And it's really, that's why I love the distortion method so much, because you don't need any of that theory. It's just complicating things. The only thing we're interested in is the sense of self. And the sense of self comes from this reality, what you want reality to be like when they're distorting. That's the big part. But then you have the small parts of, this is me, and I have a distortion towards what this is. It's a very tiny thing, and it's more difficult to look at. But if you start with these big things, then you notice the small things. And you don't need to have any theory of where it comes from, what's the ultimate reality, where did we come from, where are we going, is this real, is this the fantasy, are we living in some kind of AI generated? All of that is irrelevant to what we're trying to do. I'm not saying like that there's not any, it can be a fun endeavor to look into, but for trying to get rid of this distortion, in other words, this feeling of uncomfortableness of just being, then that's irrelevant. You don't need to know those things. Some people need to have those explanations to then intellectually occupy their mind so they can look, but you don't need to. If you just observe the distortions, everything will become clear. It just takes care of itself. You really don't need those things. See, Mindful Mama is saying, Stephen, you don't need to be aware of work with everything, I think. Sometimes things are too big and I do shut myself off or distract myself. Absolutely fine. Absolutely. We're not talking about, and this is one of the things that can happen when you start out, that there's too much. So you go into practicing and you go from not being aware of all to, I'm going to take in everything and I'm going to feel everything and I'm going to really agitate these things. I feel more, and then you get overwhelmed and you get a burnout and you like crash completely, and it can get quite bad actually. So yes, Mindful Mama, you're absolutely right. There is no shame in distracting yourself and just doing, like I've recommended students to just go out, party and get drunk. Just go out, get yourself drunk and completely forget about practicing for a while because you're way too into your practice. Okay, getting drunk might not be the best idea, but that's what they wanted to do, and that's perfectly fine. Or watch a movie, or eat fatty food is really good if it's getting too much, something that really calms you down. Take a bath, a hot bath, a cold bath, like just something that distracts you from being too much in your mind. Mindful Mama is saying, I was very strict before and thought I had to work with everything, leading me into a spiritual burnout. Oh yes, that's very real. Mindful Mama, but eventually, don't you need to look at it to resolve it? Some things just get taken care of by themselves, and also you have to think about, sure, if you need to look at it, but if you want to climb Mount Everest, oh my God, I sound so corny. If you want to climb Mount Everest, you need to start with the hill outside your door. In other words, you wouldn't start with the most difficult things first. You start with what you can handle, and then you start going up a little bit, and then you go to Mount Everest and you look at the mountain and you go like, wow, that's a big mountain. I'm never going to be able to go up that. I'm going to go home and just scale my hill a bit more. And then come back again. You're like, well, I have seen other big mountains, but this is bigger. I'm not going to do it today. And you go on some other bigger mountains. Then eventually you go to Himalayas and see Mount Everest, and you go, I'm going to go up that mountain. And you go up, and then you're like, oh, this is way too difficult. And you go down again and you quit it. But then you go to those smallest, and eventually you go up a little bit, and every time you learn a little bit, there's no rush. This idea people have that I'm just going to go bam, I'm going to go ham, and I'm going to take everything is really bad. And it can really crash people and make them much worse than when they started out. So you're right, my friend Mama. Now much softer towards myself. Good. It will come back over and over by itself. Yes, it will. You don't need to agitate this. I do actually myself agitate it sometimes, but that's when I'm ready for it and in specific situations. Jack Crusher saying, I remember when I was just blown off the knowledge that simply calming your mind took. I didn't understand that sentence. I remember when I was just blown off the knowledge that simply calming your mind took. Could you clarify that a bit? Stephen, what if there are things that you can't take your mind off? It bothers you almost 24/7. Then the breath is really good. So what you would do is that, I see it like this. You have your awareness, and your awareness is kind of spread out on many different things. If you have something that's really difficult and you keep falling into it and you kind of mull it over and over and over and over and over and over, you get stuck in this cycle, and then you eventually, it's like you're falling in and you can't stop. But if you start focusing on the breath, and don't try to have it 100% on the breath, but instead just that thought is running, but see if you can observe both things at the same time. So instead of 100% with the breath, now it's instead of 100% with the compulsive thought, you have 10% with it and 90% with your breath, and you try to separate it. And then maybe as you calm down, it becomes 80-20, and then 70-30, and maybe even 50-50 eventually if you sit for a while. And then be okay with that. And then it will come back and it will be 100%. But we need to take this calmly and just not run into it too much. If it is overwhelming, then also, of course, if it gets too much and you're suffering, then ask for help. I mean, there is professional help that can help you with that. I'm talking about how to deal with this by yourself through the distortion method, and that can really work. But at the same time, if you're overwhelmed, you need to seek help also. Like you shouldn't feel ashamed that you need to have help. I think that's also one of those spiritual traps. People think that I'm spiritual now, so I'm not going to ask for help from psychiatrists. They're evil. They're manipulating me. No, they can really help, and medicine can definitely help. There's a lot of people who should be taking medicine instead of meditating. Seriously. Let's see. Way of Buddha is very technical. Can be. I don't think it needs to be, and I don't think it was from the beginning. I just think it's evolved into that. Stephen, do yoga helps me at least. Yes, yoga, that's very good. That's actually a good point. If you have obsessive thoughts, what you can do is, like I said, distract yourself. I didn't go into that more, but distracting yourself can be taking a cold bath. A cold shower can be great. When I work with my students, we go through different things that you can do specifically to look at what distracts you from these things and gets you out of it. And some things work better than others. Some things work for a while and then don't. But basically, the idea is that just distract yourself until you can calm down and work with it. And if you need to take medicine to make it easier to then go back to deal with it, then that's absolutely okay as well. And yoga, since it's so physical, it gets you out of being stuck with this. Because these obsessive thoughts, they create a sensation in your body. If they would just be running in the back and you didn't push against them, then they're fine. They're just there. That's like, I mean, I go around and thinking all the time, like, oh, it's warm, it's cold. It smells a bit here, and then, oh, over there, that looks like it's wet. Like, I have thoughts running the whole time. Everyone does. Like, they're just, like, giving you awareness of what's happening around you, but you don't push against them. The specific thought, you do push against. Ask him what kind of yoga she's doing. Anyway, these 5 things to see, smell, taste always sounded to me very Vipassana way. I mean, Vipassana is coming back to the senses and being aware of the three, what do they call them? The 3 truths of reality. But it's just using your senses. It's more of a mindfulness practice, and I find it really good. It works with kids very well also. Stephen, depends on how I feel. When I feel I work out, I do intense yoga, but I also hatha, more still, or yin, very long sitting still. But when I feel angry or intensive thoughts, I do a faster yoga. For very nice, and very nice to do it in a studio with a good teacher. Yeah, it's the same there. Meditation also, you need, especially when you start out, you need help to get started. But then the more experience you get, the more you can do by yourself. But still, it's nice to sit with other people. I mean, I wish I had the ability to have a group of people that I could just go and sit with, like I did when I was a monastic. I just don't have that right now. But if I did, that would help, and it would make it a lot easier to sit. So if you have a group of people you can sit with, or like we're doing now, I mean, we're a group of people sitting, people are asking questions, we can bring up the difficulties and the things we're dealing with, and look at them, and people give suggestions. It's not just me. I mean, this is not a what do you call it, a satsang, where the holy teacher is giving knowledge. I'm just sharing my way of viewing this, and then other people will have similar experiences, and they share their ways of working with it. So it's more of an open dialogue. But working with other people can really help. In a group can help to get back to the mind. Kid mind is easier to mold. Maybe. Good luck, Stephen. Be kind to yourself. Yeah, really, just being kind to yourself is very important. It's 9 o'clock. Bedtime for me. Really nice sitting with everyone again, and I love these discussions in the end. I'm so happy for the questions, and I'm glad that people keep on joining, because it's just much more fun for me when there's a discussion and we can think. It makes me have to think a bit more about how I share knowledge also, and it helps you guys when you ask, and it helps me, and it helps everyone. And just discussing it, hearing other people, like knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you're not the only one who has these issues is really helpful. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you on Thursday.